The internet is full of scary photos that have been edited to elicit a reaction from visitors to some websites. But it also contains thousands of creepy photos that are either unexplained or have horrifying backstories attached to them. Whether they're creepy vintage photos or modern images that seemingly shouldn't exist. Number 5. A creepy image of a page that looks as if someone scribbled incoherent ramblings in pencil onto it is one that has a truly disturbing and creepy backstory. The true story behind the vintage photo is far more disconcerting than meets the eye. On the 7th of February, 1909, a woman named Emma Hawk was diagnosed with schizophrenia. She was admitted to the University of Heidelberg Psychiatric Hospital in Germany, where she started receiving treatment for her condition. The treatment seemed to be working, and after a few months, she was discharged and sent home. But a few weeks later, her condition started to deteriorate once more, and she was readmitted. This time, treatment seemed to have little to no effect, and her condition was deemed terminal. She was sent to an asylum where she would spend the next 11 years before passing away. During her second stay at the hospital, she started writing letters to her husband and constantly talking about her family. The text in the letters overlaps in certain sections, giving the pages a strange appearance, with some of the letters so compactly written that they're impossible to read. One of the letters has the line "Sweetheart, come" written obsessively over and over. Another simply has the word "come" also repeated thousands of times, showing the longing that she had for her husband while she was being treated. Understandably, none of the letters were sent to her family, and they're being held in the Prinzhorn Collection of Art in Heidelberg. They were also featured in an exhibition called the Prinzhorn Collection: Traces Upon the Wonderblock, which was held at the Drawing Center in New York in 2000. In 2019, a theater company in Utah produced a play called Sweetheart Come, which is based on Emma's life and the letters that she wrote. Number 4. In 2013, 43-year-old business manager Corinne Federer made a trip to the Muterslot Castle, and apologies if that's a bad pronunciation, just outside of Amsterdam, and while there, she decided to take a series of photos with her camera's high dynamic range function, also known as HDR, and she was surprised to find that she'd captured a truly creepy photo. The HDR feature on a camera works by taking a series of 3 or more photos at the same time. These images are then overlaid on each other, giving the photographer a much clearer image due to the full spectrum of light being captured. On that particular day, Corinne took dozens of photos, and it wasn't until she took a closer look at them later that she noticed something strange. The creepy photo shows a silhouette of the castle with a few clouds in the background, but on the top left side of the photo, a strange object can be seen. It has an oblong shape with what seems to be navigational fins towards the back. Corinne dismissed the idea that this may be a missile, as it would have had more fins facing the same direction. But the object in the photo seems to only have 2 fins in an S shape. She also states that they never noticed the object while taking the photos, and strangely also didn't hear anything as the area was completely quiet. The image was inspected by a former FBI special agent, Ben Hansen, and he believes the image is 100% real, stating that there's no indication of post-editing software being used, and the object seems to be internally consistent with the rest of the image. He did, however, state that he isn't certain that it shows a craft of any kind, and that there is a chance that it may have been the result of an insect flying past at just the right moment. Others have speculated that it may be the result of a weather balloon or a passing airplane. But Corinne is insistent that the creepy photo may show an extraterrestrial craft, possibly one that was passing by in outer space. She states that it isn't unreasonable to believe that there are other habitable planets in space with a civilization that has started space exploration. She added that it's possible that extraterrestrials that are far more advanced than the human race have stopped by our planet to see what's going on. Number 3. In 1910, Waverly Hills Sanatorium opened its doors, serving as a hospital for tuberculosis patients during an outbreak of the disease in Jefferson County in Kentucky, known as the White Plague. When an antibiotic was created to treat the condition, the hospital was closed and reopened again in 1962 as a nursing home. Today, it's owned by private investigators, and the building is frequented by curious visitors due to rumors that it's haunted. On the 10th of September 2006, Tom Halstead was one such visitor who stayed overnight. Tom is part of the Missouri Paranormal Research Team that was investigating the building, and around 7 a.m., he was walking on the 4th floor of the sanitarium when he took a truly scary and creepy photo in one of the corridors. In the photo, the sanitarium's dilapidated walls can be seen stretching off into the gloomy distance. But on closer inspection, it shows something unexpected. On the right-hand side of the camera, a woman can be seen exiting one of the rooms, seemingly looking directly at the camera. She has dark hair and is wearing a light-colored dress with what looks like a white collar, but the bottom of her dress and her feet seem to be transparent, as if she's only partially there. It's believed that the spirit is of a nurse called Mary Lee, who worked at the hospital and who ended her life when she learned that she'd contracted tuberculosis. Others theorized that she was actually the daughter of a doctor who worked in the building, and that she was in the habit of visiting with the patients that were being treated there. It's also been rumored that she was merely a patient who received treatment at the sanatorium, and that she eventually passed away in the building, still walking its halls today as a ghostly apparition. Number 2. On the 25th of August, 1951, Texas Technical College scientist Dr. W. Robertson, Dr. A.G. Oberg, Dr. George, and Dr. W.L. Ducker were gathered in Robertson's back garden drinking tea when they witnessed something that they couldn't explain. At around 9:20 p.m., they witnessed a V-shaped formation of lights with a blue-green hue flying in the sky above them. They were perplexed by what the lights could be, and about an hour later, they got a second chance to observe them when they returned. This time, the formation was more random as opposed to the V-shape, but they were still unable to identify what the lights were. They weren't the only ones who were baffled by the strange lights, though. Hundreds of people in the area reported seeing them, one of which was a Texas Tech freshman called Carl Hart. 5 days after the initial sighting, Carl was in the backyard of his parents' house when the lights returned, again in a V-shape. He ran into the house and fetched his camera, adjusted the exposure, and after waiting for a short while, managed to take a creepy, unexplained photo of the strange flying lights. He processed the photos and traveled to the Lubbock Avalanche Journal newspaper, whose staff were skeptical at first, but ultimately decided to publish them. A few months later, they were published in Life magazine, and they would eventually become known as the Lubbock Lights. The professors and Hart were all interviewed by government employees about the incident. This was done as part of Project Grudge, which later became known as Project Blue Book. Hart's photos were eventually found to be genuine, and investigators inquired from military installments in the area if they'd been missiles or aircraft, but officials stated that they definitely weren't. Investigators eventually decided that the lights were merely plover-like birds that had reflected street lights in the area, but biologists would later refute this, saying that the lights were too big to be plovers, and that the birds were not usually seen in that area at that time of year. Many witnesses believed that they'd seen extraterrestrial aircraft. Others believed the theory that it was merely reflected light from the street lights, while others are at a loss for any type of explanation for what they saw. The incident drew a lot of attention, and the professors as well as other witnesses would eventually grow tired of discussing the incident and stopped giving interviews altogether. 40 years after the creepy photos were taken, Carl Hart stated that he had no explanation for what he saw that night, but he was certain that he would never forget it. One of Project Blue Book's investigators, United States Air Force officer Edward Rappelt, stated that the lights were eventually identified as a naturally occurring phenomenon. He couldn't, however, divulge what the phenomenon was or who the scientist who discovered it was, as he'd been promised anonymity, and if this information was released, his identity would be revealed. Number 1. In 2012, friends of a man named Guy Winters convinced him to take a trip to the OHara mansion located in Greencastle, Indiana. They'd recently visited the abandoned building and had experienced a series of unexplained phenomena. Guy eventually agreed, and the group traveled to the site, which was built by the OHara family in the 1800s as a family home that stood for many generations. Once again, the group experienced strange events, such as apparitions that seemed to be walking down one of the hallways. They also managed to capture a strange mist with their video camera, and Guy decided to take a few extra photos on the upper floors on his own, as his friends didn't feel comfortable in that part of the building. As he snapped several photos, he started to feel ill and felt as if his head was pulsing. But he didn't see anything out of the ordinary, and the group eventually headed home. However, when Guy had his images developed, he realized that he'd taken a truly creepy and scary photo of an apparition that he couldn't see while walking through the mansion. In 3 of the strange photos that were taken of the second-floor bedroom windows, he had inadvertently captured the image of what is known as the Pink Lady. Each of the photos shows the apparition in a different position, as if it was moving around while Guy was snapping the pictures. When he checked the negatives, he saw that the ghostly figure was present there as well, and there's been no evidence found that the scary photos had been manipulated. A local TV station ran a story on the creepy photos, and a woman named Mary came forward and stated that she was a descendant of the OHaras. She showed him pictures of her mother Irene, after realizing that the figure closely resembled her. It was revealed that the window where the apparition is seen in the photo was, in fact, Irene's bedroom window, and Mary believes it was her mother who still walked the building's halls. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knots, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.